Imagine a man who rose from a small village to control an entire nation, whose face filled every street, school, and television screen. A man whose word was law, whose fear was absolute, and whose power seemed untouchable, yet whispers of rebellion quietly grew. From the dusty fields of Scornăsesti to the grand halls of Bucharest, he reshaped cities, demolished neighborhoods, and filled the nation with monuments to himself. Every act begot the next, until the people could bear it no longer, and when the streets erupted, the unstoppable became vulnerable. This is the story of Nicolae Ceaușescu, a man who lived in absolute power and fell against a single wall. He was born in 1918 in Scornăsesti, southern Romania. The son of a poor shoemaker, he worked in fields and workshops. By 15, he joined the communist youth movement and absorbed the ideology that would shape his future. Early positions in village committees allowed him to learn administration and reporting. Success begot recognition. Recognition begot more opportunities, taking him to regional offices in Alt County. Assignments begot promotion. Promotion begot entry into the regional party hierarchy. In 1965, Gheorghe George died. The Communist Party selected him as the new leader. Control of the army, police, and intelligence services followed. Control begot authority. Authority begot visibility. Visibility begot the ability to reshape Romania. He consolidated power by purging rivals and replacing them with loyalists. Loyalists begot obedience. Obedience begot absolute control. He filled Romania with monuments, statues, and portraits of himself. Major streets in Bucharest, Cluj, Timișoara, Brașov, and Constanța were decorated with his likeness. The palace of the people in Bucharest required tens of thousands of workers. Entire neighborhoods and historic districts were demolished. Informers were everywhere: factories, apartments, universities, schools. Telephone lines were tapped. Letters intercepted. Private conversations begot reports. Reports begot arrests. Fear begot obedience. Food, electricity, and heating were limited. Industrial projects, like refineries in Ploiești and steel plants in Galați, required strict quotas. Failure begot punishment. By December 1989, that resentment finally burst into the open when protests erupted in Timișoara after forced evictions and violent repression pushed ordinary people into the streets, where security forces opened fire and deaths quickly transformed local anger into national outrage. Soldiers started refusing orders, showing that loyalty inside the system was breaking apart and that the government could no longer rely on fear alone to keep control. When he appeared on a balcony in Bucharest to address the crowd, expecting obedience, he was met instead with boos, and as the moment was broadcast live on television, he and his wife tried to flee by helicopter, hoping distance would protect them, but the aircraft was intercepted near Targovist and they were taken into custody, where a hastily formed tribunal accused them of genocide, abuse of power, and the destruction of the national economy, rejected their defense, declared them guilty, and sentenced them to death. They were led into a courtyard where a wall stood waiting behind them, and as 3 soldiers raised their rifles and opened fire, decades of rule ended in seconds, marking not just the death of 2 individuals but the collapse of a system built on terror and silence. What had begun years earlier in a small village now ended against a wall, and with it came the fall of a regime shaped by ambition that created power, power that created control, control that produced silence, silence that demanded obedience, and obedience that eventually gave way to revolt when fear could no longer hold a nation.